Good morning, everyone. My name is Lorraine Cunningham, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our March 2024 board meeting. Thank you all for joining us virtually today. At this time, I'd like to call our meeting to order, and I'd like to start by saying that we respect the Indigenous nations within Metro Vancouver and acknowledge all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their continued resilience, sustainable stewardship, and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that in planning and managing the region's transportation system, we have a role to play in supporting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. First, I'd like to welcome Gordon Harris. This is his first meeting today. He joined the board on January the 1st of 2024. Gordon has spent over 35 years as a principal of an independent planning and urban land advisory consultancies. His clients include universities and colleges across Canada and in Australia, as well as NGOs and all levels of government in Canada, Central America, and Europe. From 2007 to 2020, Gordon served as the president and CEO of the SFU Community Trust, where he led planning and development of a university, a complete community of 9,000 people on the Burnaby Mountain Endowment lands owned by SFU. He's also the recipient of the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal for his lifetime contribution to community building in Canada. Welcome, Gordon, and we look forward to your ideas and contributions. The next thing is not as a happy a note, and that is, well, it's happy for Christine. We're going to say thank you to Christine Dacre. We'd like to extend our thanks on behalf of the board to TransLink's CFO, Christine Dacre, who will be retiring in the spring. Chris's expertise and incredible leadership have been invaluable to our organization, and we're so grateful to her for almost 2 decades of service and dedication to the TransLink enterprise. Thank you, Chris. We wish you nothing but best in all your future endeavors. Now we're going to transition to the agenda. So before we proceed, are there any items in the consent agenda that a director would like to remove from that agenda so we can discuss it at a later date? Okay, so seeing none, I would now like to introduce Jennifer Chan, who's going to present today's safety moment. So Jen?
Thanks, Lorraine. So this safety minute is for all of us who sometimes have the habit of standing with our toes right up to the curb when we're waiting to cross the street. I want to talk about the width of curb lanes, the size of buses, SUVs, and other vehicles, and try to convince us all to please be safe and take a step back. Now, there's a tremendous amount of thought that goes into just how wide those various types of travel lanes should be. The Transportation Association of Canada's Geometric Design Guide for Canadian Roads provides recommendations for the appropriate width of lanes, and it's referred to in the TransLink Bus Infrastructure Design Guidelines and in various municipality engineering design manuals across the region. Although there may be exceptions, the general recommendation for the minimum width for a curb lane in a multi-lane route where buses and trucks may travel and where parking is not allowed is 3.3 meters wide, preferably 3.5 to 3.7 meters, but typically the minimum for those types of lanes is 3.3 meters. So TransLink's Bus Infrastructure Design Guidelines note that the typical width of CMBC's bus fleet, that's articulated buses, the trolleys, the Novas, and New Flyers, is around 2.6 meters, not including those side mirrors. When you factor in the side mirrors, the width of the buses is around 3 to 3.1 meters. So that means when traveling along a curb lane that only meets the minimum 3.3 meters, there may be only 0.2 meters in width to spare beyond the side mirrors. That's 20 centimeters, or 10 centimeters on each side of the bus, which is less than the size of my hand. And it's certainly not just buses to think about. Commercial trucks or semis, those are also typically 2.6 meter wide, not including the side mirrors. And without naming any brands, you've probably also noticed that there's an increasing number of large SUVs and trucks on the market that also exceed 2 meters in width. So my safety tip is let's all do our best to remember to keep some distance between ourselves and the curb when we're waiting to cross the street. And CMBC's very skilled transit operators are watching out for us. So if you do hear a friendly tap on the horn reminding you to step back from the curb, let's please do that for our safety. Thank you.
Jen, thank you very much. That was really interesting. So we appreciate that good reminder for all of us as part of this meeting today. So our next item on the agenda is item number 2, and that's our public delegates. And we have several with us today. And the first gentleman that's on the list is Eric Doherty. So Jennifer, okay, Eric. Can you hear us, Eric? Eric, I think you're still on mute, Eric. Can you take yourself off mute?
Hello.
There we go. Eric, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to our meeting, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. I'd really appreciate it if you could keep it within that time frame so we have enough time for everyone else that's here to join us.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Doherty. I'm a transportation planning consultant and author of the 2023 report, Access for Everyone, publicly operated Handy Dart in Metro Vancouver. I'll start with good news. I understand that TransLink's Handy Dart delivery model review will use multiple account evaluation, or MAE. This is good. Thank you for helping to make this happen. However, I want to ensure that TransLink doesn't repeat a mistake. In 2016, TransLink also committed to conducting an MAE, but never followed through. MAEs are crucial for good transit planning and for building public trust. BC's 1993 MAE guidelines explain that the goal, quote, is to clearly identify advantages and disadvantages and the trade-offs that different alternatives entail, to inform and assist decision-making, not to supplant it. The Ministry of Transportation's current guidebook states that, quote, important decisions are never free from value judgment. What the MAE technique does is to make these value judgments explicit and to preserve for the decision maker the right and ability to apply these judgments. The Surrey Rapid Transit Alternatives Analysis is an example where multiple alternatives were identified through a TransLink MAE. The case for each option is clearly laid out for public review. You are key decision makers in this case. Please defend your ability to make informed decisions through an MAE that incorporates the perspectives of Handy Dart riders and workers. In 2016, TransLink committed to conduct an MAE to compare the advantages and disadvantages of Handy Dart outsourcing to insourcing. The MAE was never completed. And the public never got to see the financial analysis, only a thin summary. Now TransLink has an opportunity to rebuild trust with a transparent MAE where all the documents are publicly available. The challenging news is that Handy Dart service is not meeting the growing need, as the contractor can't attract and retain employees. The documents you will be discussing today show that repeatedly. Page 5 of TransLink's 2023 Statutory Annual Report shows that the contractor provided 31% less Handy Dart trips and 19% fewer total Handy Dart trips than planned in 2023. Page 57 of the 2023 Year-End Financial and Performance Report shows that Handy Dart trip denials in 2023 were over 9 times as high as in 2021. This is not a lack of demand for Handy Dart. This is the contractor's inability to deliver. What is missing from your agenda package is data showing if Handy Dart supply is keeping up with the needs of a rapidly increasing population of people with disabilities. My calculations show that TransLink provided 4.1 Handy Dart trips per person over 65 in 2008, 3.5 in 2013, and only 2.4 in 2023. In other words, In 2023, TransLink provided 30% less HandyDart service per senior than in 2013 and 40% less than in 2008. In 2023, 24% of these HandyDart trips were delivered by taxi, a record high, despite TransLink committing to limit taxi trips to 7% by 2021. TransLink is unable to provide adequate HandyDart service because the private contractors operating HandyDart over the last several years have been unable to attract and retain enough staff. The ability to provide the stability, wages, benefits, and working conditions needed to attract and retain qualified workers must be one of the accounts evaluated in the MAE. I would invite you to, as members of the TransLink board, to meet with us to discuss these issues in more detail. Thank you.
I thought I'd come off mute. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you keeping within the time limit. Can you provide us with a copy of your notes? Because there was a lot of data in there that I think would be interesting for us to see and have available to us. So we'd appreciate if you could do that.
I'll do that right away.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric, and I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ron Bergen. And Ron, are you available? Are you there?
Yes, good morning. I am here.
Welcome, Ron. Well, you have 5 minutes. Appreciate if you can respect the time, like our last speaker, who was just right on time. So
okay,
the floor is yours.
Okay, I will do my best. I'm visually impaired, so I have a little bit of challenges here, but I will do my best. Hello, my name is Ron Bergen. I am an accessibility and inclusion advocate, and I have used the HandyDart system personally, and I am part of the Save Our HandyDart Coalition. I am here to urge the members of the board to do two things. First, I would like to invite members of the board to meet with the Save Our HandyDart Coalition so that we can discuss in detail the problems that riders face from profit-oriented transit services. Second, I would like to invite members of the board to conduct ride-alongs on HandyDart to see the difference firsthand between HandyDart service and the taxi service. I am glad to hear that TransLink is planning to review HandyDart service as a rider and community advocate. However, I strongly urge the board to ensure that the review is transparent and incorporate the riders and workers' input thoroughly, not simply in a one-off session from a limited group of riders. By listening to the riders and workers throughout this process, you as a board will make sure you're getting the complete story. The performance summaries of HandyDart service often do not capture problems that riders face every day. For example, one thing that TransDev constantly brags about is high on time performance. Well, I can tell you that as a rider, that is, the statistic doesn't always tell the full story. In fact, it's incredibly common to have booked a ride for a certain time only to receive a phone call from HandyDart asking for approval to change the pickup time. If the rider declines to do this, we may not get the ride at all. if we accept and agree to change the pickup time, then TransDev records this as an on-time performance. This is just one example of how riders and workers are not consulted directly. The current methods of evaluating performance can actually be misleading. I truly hope that you as a board members will consider our request to meet with our coalition and discuss these issues further and in more detail. And just in closing, I would just like to remind you that in these evaluations, we would hope that it is not only about dollars and cents, it would be to doing what is right for the people that need the service, like seniors and people with disability, and put a personality behind our decision and understand that we all deserve a quality of life and choices. And to me, it's about accessibility and inclusion for all riders of the complete TransLink system. Thank you.
Ron, thank you very much. And I appreciate the suggestion. We've had several of our board members out doing ride-alongs over the years, but each year we have new board members. So it's a great reminder for us that that opportunity is out there. So we'll definitely be making some arrangements for that going forward. So appreciate your time.
Thank you very much to all of you for your time and giving us the opportunity.
Thanks, Ron. All the best.
Thank you. All the best to you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Quor Manpreet. And I don't know if he's waiting in the waiting room, Jennifer. Okay. He, she, I'm not sure. So, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, very nice to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
So you have, as you probably heard from the other speakers, you have 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And I appreciate very much if you can keep it within that time frame.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, board members. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Manpreet, and I'm the VP External at Capilano Students Union, which represents over 80,000 students on the North Shore and Sunshine Coast campuses of Capilano University. I have 2 things to address today. The first is about the urgent need for greater investments and focus on improving public transportation to, from, and on the North Shore. Less than 15% of our students live on the North Shore due to unaffordable rent and lack of student housing, which means 85% of the student body, about 5,000 students and even more faculty staff, have to get across the inlet to get to the campus every single day. And just under half of our students live in Surrey. So these long commute times mean long travel times for students. And we've heard from our students that 38% of them, they spend 4 hours on the transit for their round trip every day. And 50% face about 3-hour round trip every day. And this is the time they could be spending in classes or working, or even just like leisure time with their friends and family. Unfortunately, commute times in our record have only gotten worse. In 2021, students recorded an average of 41-minute one-way commute to campus. And in spring 2024, that has increased to like 1 hour, 40 minutes, which is like over an hour from what it was. I'm sure we all know that North Shore needs more fast and frequent transit routes. And that's why we're a strong ally for any projects that make transit better. And we know the North Shore BRT is the first step in getting people to move more efficiently. So when we're going to Ottawa for our lobby trip this next month, we will definitely bring that up to the federal government and ask for more investment in transit because it's always a top priority for us. This brings me to my second topic, which is the request that Capilano University have greater involvement in plans and consultations for improving public transportation on the North Shore. While we're working with you to support long-term planning projects such as the BRT, Capilano University students have been for years passed up by full buses waiting in lines at Phipps Exchange and forced to make more transfers. Before the launch of the R2 Rapid Bus and the 222 Iron Workers Express Bus in the spring service changes in April 2020, Capilano University enjoyed 4 direct bus routes that connected our campus to the region. The 239 provided service to Park Royal, 28 to the Joyce Collingwood Station in Vancouver, and 130 to Metrotown and Burnaby. We were surprised to hear the news that these 3 direct bus routes were stopped at Phipps Exchange, and then everyone had to get to Phipps and then take the single bus from Phipps to CapU, the 245. So now almost every staff, faculty, student, whoever is coming to Cap has to get to Phipps and then take the bus and then get to the university, which means long lines at Phipps and bottleneck effect. It also adds another bus to the transfer, which makes commute times even longer than they were before. Now there are 12 to 15 buses per hour during peak times for the 245 shuttle bus, and this is only the same capacity that the 239, 130, and 28 did before these 3 buses were canceled and the R2 was launched. So we're only just recovering what we had. And we have been talking to TransLink about long lines and overcrowding in 2019, and this has just gotten worse in 2024. So we continue to advocate for these things. Additionally, Capilano University's direct bus connections to the region have been severed, and we're now only dependent on 1 shuttle bus to get us to campus. We know that new routes take years to plan, so we're looking for short-term relief for our students, in the sense that we want increased capacity for the 245 shuttle bus, like higher frequency or the use of articulated buses, which they did in one summer for us. That was really helpful to students. In the long term, I hope we can be reconnected back to the region as we were before. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I misspoke before. Your name is transcribed here differently. So your first name is Manpreet, right?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I was calling you by your last name. So I apologize for that. But thank you very much for your presentation. And it is an ongoing challenge with the funding issues that we have to meet all the demand, but we will do our best, and we really appreciate you coming and telling us some of the issues that you're dealing with. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Michelle Chu, and I see that somebody has joined us here, and I think that might be Michelle. Michelle, is that you that's here? You might need to come off mute. I see your voice is still muted.
Chair, I think it might be Nathan that's joining us next.
Oh, okay. All right, Nathan, is that you? Would you like to join us?
Nathan, I think you might be on mute if you're able to take yourself off of mute.
Nathan, can you hear us? Nathan, oh, there you go. Yes, now we can hear you, Nathan. Yeah. Welcome.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
So Nathan, I'm going to start the timer now for 5 minutes, and I appreciate if you can make your comments within those 5 minutes, okay?
Yes. I'm talking about our unfair fare system. This fare structure was implemented in 1984, and it's past its due date. No such unfair structure exists anywhere in BC or Canada. Most systems in Canada do not have zones. Our 3-zone system is unfair as the size of the zones are way different. According to the Canadian Urban Transit Association, we have the highest average fares in Canada. According to TransLink figure, it is $2.69, which means when you divide the total fare revenue by the number of riders that you call journeys, it averages out that each rider pays $2.69 per journey, which is the highest in Canada. Congestion has slowed our buses by up to 33% since 1984, but the 90 minutes for transfers has not changed. Many other systems have increased the transfer time from 90 minutes to 120 minutes, which is 2 hours, which is way better and fair. Look at broken promises from 2018 when the Mayor's Council requested a pay-by-distance fare. But we have to wait at least until 2026 when everybody will have to get a new Compass card to get into the pay-by-distance fare. We have 40 major bus routes that were cut back when COVID started in 2020. Most of other transit systems have returned to the pre-COVID schedules, but not TransLink. Your report mentioned increased service to Canada Line, but service was cut in 2020, and now finally we are returning to the pre-COVID level of service, so no overall increase. Your public relations and media staff keep providing bad, misleading information instead of the actual information that Statistics Canada provides. I agree that most passengers can afford the 2.3% increase, but many cannot, mostly high school students, seniors, and low-income riders from 19 to 64. Why do we have university students paying lower monthly fares than those other groups? It's an unfair fare system. Since your September 2023 meeting, I have tried to connect with Coast Mountain Bus Company to stop their waste of millions of our money, but no success, and no one wants to talk to me or call me. No mention here also of the bus service cutback, mostly in Vancouver and Burnaby, that will start on April 15, 2024. So thank you very much for hearing me, and hopefully you can make some changes.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I appreciate your passion about our system, and we appreciate your feedback. So, Jennifer, who do we have here with us? Is it Michelle or Robin?
I believe it's Robin that's joining us next.
Okay, so we haven't seen Michelle yet. So after Robin, then we'll be finished. This will be our last. Okay, all right. So, Robin Tavender, you have to turn yourself off mute or activate your microphone. There you go.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Can. Welcome,
Oh,
and
good.
thank you for joining us.
Thank
So I'm
you
going
so
to set
much
the
for having
timer for 5 minutes and appreciate if you'd respect that that time for us. Okay?
Of course. Yep.
Thank you.
So I've appeared before the board several times, and it's about the issue of the disability pass that's issued by the ministry and TransLink sort of jointly, and how it leaks identifying information and prevents people with disabilities from riding the transit system anonymously and using fare passes just like everyone else. For example, the novelty pass is like the keychain pass. I have a family member who would love to have a keychain pass, but unfortunately he can't. I've canvassed all that with the board, and I spoke with your, I believe, Chief Financial Officer, Christine Dacre. She was very gracious and gave me a telephone call where we talked about some of these issues. She told me that the ministry is unwilling to change the pass design, so that seems to me something that's a concern, although TransLink having this agreement with the ministry, if the ministry doesn't want to change that term in the funding agreement, well, I guess that's where we are in terms of the ministry. I wanted to share, though, a situation where this had real-world boots-on-the-ground consequences other than the ones I'm outlined. My family member was out riding one night with a bunch of friends, as he does, on a bicycle, and they stopped in a park. And I don't want to alarm anyone or disturb them, but they found a dead man hanging from a bridge who'd unfortunately committed suicide. So they did the responsible thing and called the RCMP, and the RCMP attended, and it was quite a production. But of course, the RCMP wanted to have some sort of identification from people. Now, I know the pass isn't identification in the eyes of some people. I've managed federal and provincial electoral polls, so it is identification. It's just not photo identification. I would accept that if they presented it at a poll as proof of their name, for example, their surname anyway. So This was given to the RCMP officer, who sort of laid it with all the other ID cards that he'd collected on a table. And he took a picture of it in full view of our family member and all of his friends. One of his friends was observant and said, "Oh, you've got a pass that's red. Why do you have that?" And this led to a sort of awkward conversation, which my family member didn't explain why, but it sort of left a question. And of course, if anyone uses the transit system, they've all seen the red passes. And while Miss Dacre did inform me that, of course, there's people, I believe, in Burkeville and seniors and other people who have them, they know my family member doesn't live in Burkeville and isn't a senior. So this sort of, by process of elimination, has now given his friends a little bit of private information about his life that he didn't really want to share. So there's that. And I just think that creates an actual sort of set of facts where we can see that this is not the best system to have, where people with disabilities are given essentially, and it's not due to any desire to single people out. I don't think there's a desire. It's just really it seems like the ministry would have to answer why they don't want people with disabilities to have the ability to ride transit anonymously like everyone else. But this also means, as I've said before, that when people with disabilities interact with, say, the transit police or any other police force that might see this card, they then get the impression that this person might have disabilities. And that's private medical information in a sense. So we have a system that has been structured in a paternalistic sort of way that doesn't really, in our view, treat people with disabilities as full members of the community with the same rights to, for example, anonymity as people who can pay their fares have. And just very briefly, I wanted to touch on the notion of fares in general because you're talking about that. Fares are a regressive tax. If you pay if your income is $100,000 a year and you pay the same fare as someone whose income is $10,000 a year, the person whose income is $10,000 a year is effectively paying a 10 times greater tax. I know I've covered this in some of the correspondence I've written, but I feel strongly that regressive taxation is one of the most socially unjust features of our contemporary society. So thank you for your time and listening to my concern.
Robin, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us today, and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention again. So we'll continue to try and come to a solution that might be workable for all, but we are working within some constraints that I know you appreciate. So thank you.
Well understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, I think that ends. Jennifer, Michelle hasn't joined us. Okay,
Correct.
so that then concludes our delegations for the day. So with that, I thank everybody that joined us and took the time to come and make a presentation. And we'll move to item number 3 on our agenda, which is our CEO report. And I'm going to turn the floor over to our CEO, Kevin Quinn. So Kevin, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone, and special welcome to you, Director Harris. I very much look forward to working with you. Before I get started, I do just want to take a moment to respond to a couple of the delegates who spoke this morning, specifically just on HandyDart and that have an interest in our review of the HandyDart delivery model. We know that right now really is the right time to take a very constructive look at the HandyDart delivery model, really given trends that we're seeing in the custom transit industry and our contract that will be coming to an end with our current provider in 2026. It is a great opportunity to take a deeper look at how we can better deliver for our HandyDart users. And so this review is going to take place over the course of this year and will really inform how we deliver HandyDart service and who delivers it in the future. And just in response to a couple of the comments, we are going to use tools such as a public sector comparator. We are going to use a multiple account evaluation, in addition to robust consultation with our stakeholders, our HandyDart stakeholders, to bring a recommendation to this board that advances regional interests and provides excellent customer service. Just last year, I had the opportunity to join the board and our users advisory committee on a system tour. You might recall that, and I appreciate the suggestion from one of our delegates to do something similar on HandyDart. And I'll ask my team that works with our HandyDart users advisory committee and work with the board to explore some of those possibilities. Next slide, please. As you're all aware, our region is facing some very significant pressures. In the last year, our population has grown by 90,000 people, and we are on track to reach 3 million Metro Vancouverites this year. Fact is that congestion is worsening, and we are increasingly experiencing the effects of the climate emergency, and our region is facing an affordability crisis. There is an urgent need and significant expectation from senior governments to increase transit-oriented housing. At the same time, about 900,000 people take transit every single week, and at peak times, 1/3 of trips in Surrey, Langley, and Vancouver are overcrowded. There isn't any place to stand, and you run the very real chance, as you heard from one of our delegates today, of a full bus passing you by. And while the Access for Everyone plan outlines our vision to deliver excellent service both today and tomorrow, TransLink is facing a structural deficit due to lower than projected fare revenues, declining fuel tax revenues, and increased costs due to inflation. We know that a robust transportation system is foundational in tackling the challenges our region is facing, but the reality is that these pressures have outpaced our local ability to pay for it. With 90,000 residents moving to the region in 2023 alone, it is clear that now, more than ever, we need to immediately act on these pressures and anticipate that this rate of growth may not slow down. Because an effective transportation system balances investment with growth. Next slide, please. Today, we're releasing our 2023 accountability report, which underscores how we've persevered in the face of these challenges and made important progress on social, environmental, and financial responsibility in the past year. In 2023, the enterprise took major strides to advance social inclusion and equity, complete and affordable communities, and climate action. We were the first transit system in Canada to implement Braille signage at all 8,400 bus stops, and we're now providing customer information at our call center in over 300 languages. Our real estate development program continued to support the supply of housing in the region as we advanced our first real estate development program partnership with PCI Developments next to the future Arbutus station. And we reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 12%. By implementing renewable fuels and continuing to electrify our bus fleet. This accountability report really highlights the value that the TransLink enterprise brings to Metro Vancouver, advancing key regional priorities, delivering excellent service for our customers, and keeping our region moving. And in order to keep progressing this important work, we need to address our financial challenges while continuing to ensure we provide essential services and access to the people in this region. Next slide, please. On Friday, we began public engagement on a new investment plan that will begin to address these critical transit service needs over the next year and respond to Metro Vancouver's unprecedented growth, all while preparing to implement the Access for Everyone plan. The proposed 2024 investment plan addresses urgent short-term transit needs, while TransLink continues working with the board, the Mayor's Council, and the province of BC on developing a sustainable long-term funding solution. Next slide, please. With this plan, we are proposing modest increases to bus and rail service that will begin to address critical transit needs in our region, including better bus frequencies on approximately 60 routes, increased Canada Line frequencies during peak hours, an earlier first weekday C-bus sailing, and enhanced late evening handy dart service. The plan also includes foundational investment in bus fleet and facilities to prepare us to deliver the Access for Everyone plan as soon as possible, including bus rapid transit and electrification commitments. Finally, we are extending another year of funding to municipalities for walking, biking, and road safety improvements, as well as investing in our bus speed and reliability program for another year to address bus delays on key corridors. Next slide, please. To fund these investments, we are limited to the mechanisms allowed under provincial legislation, which are currently fare revenues and property taxes. This July, transit fares will increase an average of 2.3% or by 5 to 10 cents for an average trip, as previously approved in 2022. Chris Dacre will address this further in her presentation later this morning. The plan also approves an additional 10-cent increase to the cash fare in 2025, Since 2020, fare increases have been kept much lower than the rate of inflation, and this remains true with this increase. Property taxes in 2024 will increase an additional $3.08 per month for the median property. For perspective, this one-time increase amounts to about a 1% increase on the total average property tax bill. Next slide, please. I want to reinforce that this plan is a short-term measure that will bridge the gap until the next investment plan anticipated for 2025, which will offer longer-term solutions to the region's growth. While the 2024 investment plan stabilizes finances in the short term, a new sustainable funding model is needed to advance priority projects outlined in the Access for Everyone plan. We're continuing to work with the board, the Mayor's Council, and the Government of BC to develop a new sustainable funding model that will support regional transportation and keep up with growth for years to come. Consultation on the 2024 investment plan is ongoing through next Friday, April 5th. We are inviting public feedback on the plan online, by email, and by phone, and more information can be found by visiting translinklistens.ca. Public comments will be shared with the board and the Mayor's Council following consultation. Next slide, please. Excuse me, before closing, I just want to extend my thanks to Christine Dacre, our Chief Financial Officer. Chris will be retiring this spring, as the chair noted, after 2 decades of service. And I just want to note that Chris has really played an instrumental role in our financial stability, really guiding us through numerous challenges and successes. Chris was a key figure in implementing the Compass system, leading the development of our enterprise sustainability policy and strategy, overseeing the development of our low carbon fleet strategy, and really establishing our brand in the investment community. And so, Chris, we're so grateful for the time you've given to this organization. And so thank you for your leadership and commitment to the TransLink enterprise. Next slide, please. With that, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin in regards to his comments today? All right, so seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 4 on our agenda, which is the BC Rapid Transit Company. And this is a report from President Sandy Zane. So Sandy, welcome, and
thank you.
Look forward to your report.
Thank you, Chair. And in addition to my written report, happy to share with the board today some highlights from our previous few months at BCRTC. I will start my comments on behalf of BCRTC. I'd like to thank Chris Dacre. Where we are today at SkyTrain is in large part due to Chris's contributions over many years. And where we are going as SkyTrain with our ambitious growth has in large part also been shaped by Chris's contributions. So thank you, Chris. On behalf of the BCRTC family, you will certainly be missed. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Our focus areas at BCRTC remain providing excellent service delivery every single day, being ready for our expansion program with everything we need to do on operational readiness. And of course, none of it would be possible without a team that's healthy, motivated, and fulfilled. So we released in January our 2024 business plan, which picks up on these 3 themes, which match very well with TransLink's today, tomorrow, and together priorities. And within our business plan, we outlined our areas of emphasis and the initiatives where we want to, as we say, push the needle and improve in all 3 areas. So we have a plan. It was widely circulated within BCRTC. Every one of our team members know where they fit and what they have to do and how much do we value their contributions in all 3 areas. This is, for us, has been a tremendous shift away from siloed thinking at the departmental level towards corporate thinking as to what are our common priorities at BCRTC. Next slide, please. And we're beginning to see the outcomes of really focusing on what is most important. Our 2023 metrics were all quite good. From a tremendous amount of ridership increase, 18% in 1 year is really unprecedented. And then maintaining a good service delivery, on-time performance, customer satisfaction numbers throughout the year. while doing essential state of good repair and keeping our elevators, escalators in good state of repair, and of course, continuing with the rail grinding program that we have. I would want to note that in February, the month that just passed, we recorded more than 100% of pre-COVID levels of ridership on Expo and Millennium lines specifically. This was probably aided by February having 29 days this year, but nevertheless, it was a milestone of us getting over 100% for the first time since COVID on Expo and Millennium lines. Next slide, please. Our ability to deliver under difficult circumstances was tested in the mid-January snowstorm. This was one of the most severe snowstorms in terms of fall, how much we accumulated within a 24-hour period. We spent a lot of time preparing and making sure we have a plan and that we deliver to the plan. The departments worked together both in being ready for the snow and then in being quick to recover from the snow. And by all measures, we performed exceptionally well. SkyTrain kept on working. We delivered the service levels we intended to deliver during a winter storm event. And again, with every storm event, we have lessons learned. We learned some more lessons this time. We will take those away and strive to do even better next time. Next slide, please. We have a lot going on, which the public is seeing, and we're working overtime and a lot behind the scenes to minimize impacts on our customers as a lot of work happens on the system. Many of our customers have noticed that we now have alternate service, which was introduced earlier this year in the Braid, Sapperton, Lougheed areas, where we are doing now the construction work for our future operations and maintenance center near Braid Station. That has resulted in some single tracking, some significant impacts. We worked very hard on the best possible plan that we can provide in that area, and by and large, we have been able to minimize delays for our customers. The other one I'll mention, which has been in the news the last few days, is we will be doing a significant switch replacement near King George Station between April and June. That will require closing King George Station. We very much appreciate our customers' patience. This is essential work on some old equipment that we have to replace. And we're taking the opportunity to do as much maintenance and upgrade work as we can in that area, including at the station. So we're scheduled this for 6 weeks from late April to early June. Next slide, please. With the calendar flipping to 2024, we are 5 years away from a very exciting future. So we've been using this opportunity to make sure our team remains mobilized and excited about what the future brings. When we do the math, it's a little bit scary. This is 1,800 days between now and 2029. And in 2029, we will be running 41 new Mark V trains. We will have the Broadway subway project open. We will have a new operations control center open. We will have a new OMC4, which I mentioned, near Braid Station open. And we will have Surrey Langley SkyTrain open. All between now and 2029, according to current schedules. As you can imagine, this is a reinvention of BCRTC. We're working super hard behind the scenes to make all of this a reality and working with our project delivery partners to make sure this growth is successful and seamless from the customer perspective. Next slide, please. I'll share some details as to what's going on. So we now have our first Mark V train right here in the yard where I'm talking to you from. It's undergoing testing within the yard and soon will be also tested outside the yard on our main line. This will be a many months process. It's not overnight that we can bring new technology to our customers, but the process is underway. We're very excited. Train 2 is now undergoing testing in Kingston. And so that future is taking shape in front of our eyes, and we're really happy to see that happening. Next slide. We also have the new Operations Control Center 2. That's the building in the background of this picture. The building is taking shape. The glazing is up. We're beginning to see light inside the building. On schedule to move in to our first new control center since the mid-1980s. Our date to operationalize that building is early 2026, well in time to allow us to operate the Broadway subway project and the full system out of the new building. Next slide, please. We have a lot of other projects in the yard, which are essential for our growth. Our guideway team have been in a 1980s style shed for a very long time. They will be moving into a new shop. This is the team that does all the overnight maintenance on the guideway and on the track. So they'll be moving into a new facility in April. So arrangements are well underway for that move. We've also almost completed extending our vehicle cleaning facility. Again, really important work to accommodate those longer Mark V trains. So that bottom picture that you see there is the new extended cleaning facility. The walls are up, the roof is up. We're looking forward to taking ownership of that facility by Q2 this year. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, none of this happens without our team being healthy, motivated, and fulfilled. Safety is our first priority when it comes to that. We achieved a 95% score on our certificate of recognition audit with WorkSafe BC. That was the best score we've ever achieved. We have some really good metrics in terms of low and decreasing injury frequencies, with some teams celebrating long spans. Really good to see long spans without any reported injuries. We always have work to do in this area. We can always do better, but we're pointing in the right direction, and I'm really pleased to see that. Next slide, please. We are growing, as you well know. We're growing by several hundred people over the coming few years. So part of what we need to do is get our story out in terms of being a growing company and get that pipeline of talent ready to join us. So we will be doing hiring fairs in 2024, and we're organizing a fair specifically targeting SkyTrain attendance, which we're hoping to put on in 2024. So we do that in participation with TransLink, and we get the word out that we need good people, and hopefully that will give us a pipeline of talent ready to join BCRTC. Next slide, please. And finally, we had, as you probably know, over the last 3 weeks, a couple of milestone days. We had Employee Appreciation Day and then Transit Operator and Worker Appreciation Day. We took those opportunities to very much be with our frontline workers, show our appreciation in person, ask how they're doing, make sure we're not missing anything, and that we're doing all we can to support our frontline workers who ultimately deliver that excellent service our customers depend on. I think this was my last slide. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Danny, thank you very much. I have to say, in my time at TransLink, I've never seen this many things going on at BCRTC. So I know you've got a lot of balls in the air and you're juggling all of them. And we really appreciate, maintaining the safety level at the same time as doing all of this work. We're going to transform the region here with this expansion. So well done. Any questions for Sandy in regards to his report? I know we had an opportunity to read it beforehand, and then with your comments today, I don't see any questions, Sandy. So I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Coast Mountain Bus Company. And Randy Helmer, VP of Maintenance, is here on behalf of Mike McDaniel. So Randy, the floor is yours.
Good morning, members of the board, Mr. Quinn, members of the public. I am Randy Helmer. I'm Vice President of Maintenance. And as the chairperson indicated, I will be presenting our CMBC presentation report on behalf of Mike McDaniel. Before I start, I would like to extend our thanks and gratitude to Christine Dacre. She's been very influential over the years here at CMBC. We also take great pride and bragging rights in mentioning that she did spend some time working at CMBC, and so we've been very beneficial as a result of that. Next slide, please. We have a few items on the agenda today, so you'll see them on your screen here. It's a bit of everything from operations to HR, safety, and a few on the maintenance trade side as well. Next slide. So as this is our first meeting of the year, I'd like to start off by sharing a bit about CMBC's annual business plan for 2024. So the plan was developed with input from managers and directors across the organization and includes CMBC's most high priority initiatives. It's aligned with the focus of areas of our Strategy 2025 and TransLink's priorities of deliver today, deliver tomorrow, and deliver together. So this plan includes 41 initiatives, and they're supported by 91 smart actions. And I'll just share a few of the highlights this morning, not all 91, trust me. First of all, we'll continue with developing the zero emission fleet transition plan, which is part of a key priority, not just for CNBC, but also TransLink. Second, we'll move forward, taking the next steps with our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And third, we'll enhance our approach to employee safety. Next slide. So as usual, the March meeting, we can share some annual numbers with you. For 2023, CNBC operated a 99.02% level of service. As for ridership, we're proud to say that the bus system has not only recovered in the post-COVID era, but also thrived. Bus ridership is over 100% of pre-COVID numbers in several of our regions, and at more than 90% overall. And growth was strongest in the Southeast and Northeast subregions. Over to Handy Dart, we saw a steady increase in ridership here too. As always, we're prioritizing getting customers to their appointments. In Q4 2023, 99% of the requested trips were delivered, excluding trips that were canceled by the customer. And this percentage is consistent and flat with Q3 2023, the previous quarter. And lastly, at the final quarter of 2023, on-time performance was at 91%, which was steady from the previous quarter as well. Next slide. And as mentioned in the previous presentation, you may know that March is always a very busy month in the transit industry. So not only do we have March 1st, which was National Employee Appreciation Day, which Sandy mentioned, we also have March 18th, which is a special day for transit industry, the Transit Operator and Worker Appreciation Day. This year too, we took advantage of both these opportunities to show our employees how much we appreciate them. And executives and leaders from across the enterprise were out and about thanking employees in person, both inside our facilities and out on the system. Next slide, please. Next slide covers two safety updates. So the first one is operator protection barriers, and this project is one that I'm sure you've been updated on several times over the past year or so. And today's your final update. So we recently completed the installation of permanent hard barriers on 522 remaining buses that still had the soft vinyl barriers that we installed during the pandemic. So the project was extremely comprehensive and required coordination and teamwork across numerous teams. A very small number of buses, a total of 44 in all, were excluded from this project, and they're either retiring soon or we're going to move them over to our training department. And this in-house design versus using an external vendor saved us over $1.6 million on this initiative alone. And lastly, I'm proud to share that not only did our maintenance and engineering teams outfit our own buses, but they also provided 15 barriers to West Vancouver Transit. And next, each year, CNBC participates in the WorkSafe BC Certificate of Recognition audit, which is called the Core Audit. And I'm pleased to report that we had a successful audit. And as a result, we'll be receiving 10% incentive rebate from WorkSafe BC. Next slide, please. And the next item is an update on the operations side, so hopefully I can do it justice. So some of you may be aware that CNBC loves paper, and over time, we've been transitioning from paper-based to digital processes. So this year, we'll take a giant step forward by replacing the daily operator management system. Internally, we call it the DOM system. And it's the dispatch and payroll system for transit operators, and it's the backbone of our depots. So next month, starting at the Vancouver Transit Center, it will be replaced with a new program, which is called MyWork. And MyWork will manage the day-to-day activities for the conventional operator workforce and empower them to manage their own schedules. So they'll tap in on kiosks like the one shown here. They'll set their work preferences, they'll trade work, they enter overtime, and much more. MyWork will significantly and fundamentally change the way our depots function, and I'm sure Mike will have more updates for you at a future meeting. Next slide, please. Now on to a few slides from the maintenance side of things. So in December, we had 2 students from BCIT Trades Discovery for Women program, and they spent time here at CNBC job shadowing and gaining work experience. So both students declared heavy mechanical trades technicians as their likely routes into trades careers and specifically requested to be matched with CMBC. So the students worked closely with employees in fleet overhaul, where we paired them each day with different mentors to maximize their exposure. And at the end of the experience, both the student and CMBC employees considered it a great success, and we are looking forward to participating again in the future. Next slide. So next is a big milestone for our apprenticeship program. So CMBC's commercial maintenance apprenticeship program, it dates back all the way to 1974. So for about 10 years, ending in 2012, there was also a parts person apprenticeship program. And today we're reintroducing the parts person program to meet our growing needs. So 2 parts persons apprentices were hired in February and are expected to graduate from the program in mid-2027. And having good parts persons is integral to the smooth functioning of a garage. They perform inventory control, they order parts, they handle the warehouse, and they even sell parts that are no longer needed, among other duties, of course. So having a parts person's apprentices will help us ensure that we have a healthy pipeline of future parts persons and also provide a well-defined career path for our CMBC employees. So both of our new apprentices were formerly in the bus service area of CMBC. And you'll see one of our new parts person apprentices here on the slide, and her name is Carrie Walsh. And I can't help but mention, but both her dad and her uncle were technicians for CMBC. Her grandfather worked for BC Hydro, BC Electric, and both her great-grandfathers worked for BC Electric. So we have many employees who have transit in their families, but Carrie certainly has most. Next slide, please. And my last slide is on CMBC's current recruitment efforts. So we'll be holding a job fair on May 11th, and these are for challenging, hard-to-fill roles, such as commercial transport mechanic and the maintenance shift supervisor roles. And we have a social media and website ads, and they feature these roles and point people to apply to the jobs online. What we do is these candidates, the ones that meet the requirement, they'll be invited to join us at the job fair on May 11th. Next slide, please. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. And thank you, members of the board, Mr. Quinn, and members of the public.
Thank you very much, Randy. I see you and BCRTC will be competing for people as you're out both hiring as both sides of the both organizations are growing. Any questions for Randy in regards to his presentation? I have a curiosity, and that's about the Michelin Grip D tire testing. But I see that Andrea Reimer has a question. So Andrea, why don't you start?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Randy, for the great report. I did have questions about 2 things in the KPIs. The first was around Handy Dart, popular topic today, although I'd already circled it. I see that we're substantially up from 2022, but quite a bit down from the target. So I'm curious if you can give me some idea of how the target is set and what might lead to that factor.
It's a very good question. And I think what I'll do is I'll defer to my team to be able to get back to you with the answer. I don't think I'll do it justice. And so I'll take that question, we'll get the answer, and we'll get back to you.
No problem. And I did, when I saw you were presenting, I was like, I feel like this is unfair to throw on you. And the second one, which may fall in the same category, was the pedestrian incidents per million service hours seemed quite a bit up. And I appreciate that's one that's probably hard to project, but I was interested in what was driving that increase.
So I will take that question away and have our Director of Corporate Safety, Derek Stewart, provide a response for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Director Chan.
Thank you very much for the presentation as well. And please feel free to take this question back if need be. It's also on the KPIs. In the information that we've received, we received information on the complaints per million boarded passengers, and then also information on the, excuse me, validated Handy Dart complaints per 1,000 trip requests. So I just want to say it's great to see the number of complaints has decreased from 2022 to 2023. But I also understand that the number of Handy Dart trips is a relatively small proportion of total trips. But that said, the percentage of complaints per trips appears to be quite a bit higher in Handy Dart than for all riders. And that's for validated handy dart complaints. So just in reflecting on the concerns that we heard from the public speakers today with the service model review that will take place for handy dart, and to the extent that it may be difficult to validate complaints, my question is whether the total number, not just validated, but the total number of handy dart complaints is information that we have available and that may be considered as part of that service model review.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll bring it back and make the suggestion to bring that forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. And Jen, thank you for your question. Harj.
Thank you, Chair. Randy, thank you so much for the presentation. I just a couple of questions from me. One, I was just wondering if you can make some comments about the new R6 rapid bus, the Scott Road one, and I know we've launched it in January. Just some high level, how are we doing with that and how's it going? And then Lorraine sort of beat me to the other one, which was around the Michelin Grip D tire testing. I wanted to see how those tires performed during the winter and if we have any lessons learned from that.
Okay, thanks for that. I can give you a high-level response on the R6. So everything that we're hearing so far, there's great ridership, and also the service is running quite efficiently. So one of the things that we did do is that yesterday we looked at, number of incidents and that type of thing, and it's in line with any of the other service that we provide in our system. So it looks like everything is a go and everything is operating quite well. Now, I can answer the Grip D. So as far as the Grip D tires go, so it's been a really interesting initiative that we've been working on. And so, and I'm sure you've been advised of this. So these tires have a different tread pattern and stuff. And so they're still like an all-season tire, but they're just a bit more aggressive in the snow. So we've been trying them out at, up SFU and some areas on the North Shore. And they've been performing, based on the feedback that we're getting from the operators, is they've been performing quite well. And we're really pleased with the outcome to date. The next point of this, though, is, and it's really, really critical in this, is that we're going to do some performance testing in wet weather. Because as you can appreciate, the buses operate more on rainy days than they do on snowy days. And so what we do is that we put these buses out on a track, and we run various tests with our engineering and training crews and monitor the results. So we're going to be doing that as the weather gets, I'm going to say better, but yet worse. We want it during the rainy period, and we're going to try that, and we're going to measure that. And that's really going to be our wholesome part of that study that we're doing to identify the results of that and whether we're going to continue moving forward or not. But so far, everything is pointing to operators are quite happy, performing well in snowy conditions. And I just want to add another thing that's really, really going to help us starting next year is that we're starting to get a delivery of the Arctic buses, the 60-foot buses, where the center axle is actually a drive axle. So the bus is going to be, pretty well a four-wheel drive vehicle, which is really, really going to help us. And then if you put the Grip D tires on that, it's going to be even a better solution. Thank you.
Randy, somebody finally gave you a question that was right in your wheelhouse. I'm
Yes.
so happy for you.
Andy. Thanks for lobbing the softball to
me. Andy.
Great, thank you, Randy. First, just a couple of comments. You stole part of my report from HR, but I do want to commend CNBC on their Discovery for Women pilot project with BCIT. I think it's a great initiative. I think there's a lot of unique opportunities arising as we change over the technology going forward, and I hope to see both women and other diverse groups being attracted for careers at Coast Mountain. And again, the apprenticeship program that you mentioned on the parts person, where every industry I know is struggling for people, and I think any resumption or increase in apprenticeships to give careers is just commendable. So thank you for that. I was going to ask about the tires as well, but also it may be too early to tell. I'm just wondering about wear on the Michelin tires. Two things occurred. I mean, one, yes, we look at snow, but that is a minor part of the overall run. And I was just wondering if the actual wear compound on the new tires is significantly different especially if it decreases. And having heard what you've just said on the extra drive axle, that will put more wear on that tire. So is there an increased costing and what is the impact financially of the Michelin tires? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, actually, I can tell you that based on, we lease our tires, and based on that and the way that we have the contract set up, the wear or the rate at which the tire wears, whether faster or slower, will not impact our budget for this whatsoever. But what we are finding is that it's pretty well lining up with what the manufacturer is telling us as far as wear goes, which is really close to our intercity tire that we use now on our buses. So they're pretty comparable.
And if I could, just one final question. This is pure curiosity. Our brake shoes that we use on our buses,
yes,
do they contain asbestos?
No.
None at all?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the report.
Thank you, Randy. I think you're off the hook.
Great.
You've got some takeaways, and I know the board members will appreciate receiving those responses back. And we'll thank you for coming and presenting on behalf of Mike today.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, I'm going to now welcome Chief Muir, Suzanne Muir, to come and join us and give presentation. Hello, Suzanne, for our transit police. So welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Very pleased to give the update for Metro Vancouver Transit Police today. And I'm going to highlight 6 sort of key areas of focus and perhaps interest. I'd be remiss to not also recognize Chris Dacre. Chris, thank you for all your support, your dedicated service, and you truly have had an exceptional career. Next slide, please. I'm going to share a little bit about the 877777 text service awareness campaign. And so to complement the text service ads that were placed on the transit system in 2023, outreach occurred through a contracted marketing company in November, December 2023. And the campaign ran from November 20th to December 15th. And the outreach teams attended 25 different SkyTrain stations and held 35 activation events to educate people in 4 key areas on how they could put information into their phones to contact and text. The first was QR codes. Secondly, they were able to tap a podium to bring up the 8777 contact card to be able to enter. There was also activation staff there to assist entry into phones and business cards as well with details. And the results of that 4-week campaign, there were 9,300 direct interactions with customers, 162,000 passive interactions as customers walk by, and over 7,600 customers either added the number or took a card with the information. And in 2023 overall, we saw a 23% in text conversations from 2022. And we truly believe this to be linked in part to the success of the awareness campaign. Next slide, please. Ridership levels increased 20% in 2023 compared to 2022. And they continue to move towards the pre-pandemic levels. The 2023 results in our crime rate show positive movement, with decreases in the rates of crime against persons down 22%, and crimes against property per 100,000 boarded passengers down 28% when compared to 2022. I believe there's 2 factors in part that contribute to these rate changes. First, it's due to the increase in ridership, and secondly, reductions in the actual number of crimes against person and property files in the year. Next slide, please. Mental health interventions, it's an area we talk and touch on quite often. When compared 2023 to 2022, transit police made 22% fewer apprehensions of persons in mental health crisis under Section 28 of the Mental Health Act, We had 200 apprehensions in 2023 versus 255 in 2022. This may be attributed in part to the diversion work of the Transit Police mental health liaison. He assisted 32 new clients with mental health concerns. That resulted in a 220% increase in interventions of the 10 clients recorded in 2022. The 200 Section 28 Mental Health Act files in 2023 is just slightly above the overall annual average of 194 apprehensions, and that average has been taken from 2012 onward. And a very important statistic of these persons apprehended under Section 28 of the Mental Health Act in 2023, 80% were committed, held, or voluntarily admitted once in hospital in order to obtain supports. Next slide, please. Interest, the R6 came up earlier, and with the rollout of the rapid bus lane in Surrey in January 2023, our team was also engaged. And Transit Police has a number of specialty teams, and one of those, the Target Mobile Enforcement Team, TMET, was out educating drivers and conducting bus lane enforcement on the new route. The first week, we focused a lot on education. During the second week of January 2024, 300 violators were observed, and 84 violation tickets were written during that time. And our TMAT team continues to conduct ongoing education enforcement for the R6 and other bus lanes in Metro Vancouver. And this is really to support customers arriving on time to their destinations. Next slide, please. Over the past 5 years, there's been a steady increase, is depicted in the graph, in the number of naloxone deployments by our frontline officers. In 2023 alone, the Transit Police recorded 79 naloxone saves, a 41%, again, a 41% increase over the 56 saves recorded in 2022. Police officers, community safety officers, and community policing center volunteers are all provided with training and Narcan kits. In some instances, we're seeing multiple applications required to revive the same individual. And the stats continue to highlight the ongoing opioid crisis in Metro Vancouver. Next slide, please. With our community safety officers, they're fully trained. And the second class of 10 officers is just completed their field training. And originally, we were looking at an April graduation. However, we will look forward to the graduation of those 10 members this afternoon. And we will begin, and as we enter into later this year, looking at filling the additional 4 positions in the CSO program. Next slide, please. And finally, I'd like to finish with Transit Police in collaboration with TransLink EDI and Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada hosted a citizenship swearing-in ceremony on March 8th. 25 people were officiated as Canadian citizens. This hosted event was an opportunity to support the citizen process and celebrate with Canada's newest citizens. It was also brought forward as an important initiative, recognizing that many of Transit Police and TransLink enterprise employees have previously received their citizenship at similar ceremonies. It was wonderful to engage with our newest citizens, with many new connections made, and it's an event that we look forward to continuing to host in the years to come. Next slide, please.
I think that was your last slide.
Yeah, so I'll just finish with thank you very much for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, for that report. Any questions for Suzanne? I see that Director Reimer has a question. Andrea.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Chief Muir. It's really good to see the work on the mental health apprehension, so thank you for that. And yeah, it looks very positive. Questions I had were from also the KPIs, the two measures. One was provincial violation tickets and one was the fare infraction notices. So I note that they're both up 19%. I also note that our ridership is up 20%. So I'm curious about whether that is simply a factor of ridership increasing or if there's trends that we should be thinking about independent of that.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Director. You're absolutely right. There is a ridership component to that. Also, we have our community safety officers who are now out on the system, and in part, they're looking at that, fair enforcement as well as beyond that, the outreach that they're doing with community there. Our target mobile enforcement team is also doing enforcement on the system, but I say that it is in conjunction as well with our community engagement team and outreach. So we're ensuring that people on the system who may not have access or availability for fare are provided with fare passes or other opportunities for safe travel.
That's great. So I did look up 2019 because I was curious. It's hard to compare over the last 4 years just because of the ridership differentials. And the fare infractions in 2019 were 16,443 for the year, and in 2023 were 4,692. So that's a pretty substantial difference. I'd be curious, and I don't expect that you would know that on the spot here, but I'd be quite curious in what might be driving that difference. Is it the increase of community safety officers who can perform these kinds of functions to help people who don't have access to fares financially, or if there's something else driving it?
Yeah, we did see a significant decline in our numbers during COVID, and there was a decline in ridership, and that transition to as well kind of the number of tickets being issued on the system. So I believe that is one of the factors in those changes in numbers that you're seeing from 2019.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Harj.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, thank you for the wonderful report. There's a lot of great work going on. My question was just around the SMS text, program. I noticed in the KPIs that the number of conversations were up significantly, but the number of files generated were down, a little bit as well. I'm just wondering, maybe just at a high level, what kind of interactions are we seeing from our customers, and what is appropriate for somebody to text on that number? What is inappropriate for that? Because if you're getting a lot of conversations and less files, that means maybe we're getting a lot of information that may not be necessary, clogging up the system.
Yeah, thanks, Director. Very thoughtful comment. Yeah, we look, there is about a 3,500 difference, so 3,500 difference between in 2023 the number of unique text conversations and the number of police files generated. So I think with the awareness campaign, it did create obviously more knowledge around the text number, and it created outreach for different types of support within and on the system. So I think that will be part of, from our operations communication center, making sure we're redirecting passengers, in the right direction and manner for the supports that they need. And I think, Keely, you've hit on there, maybe an education component as well to ensure that we're using the number for sort of the purpose intended. That said, people are reaching out and we're being able to direct them and give them the supports they require.
And I think it's great that people are reaching out, and the awareness campaign is a great thing. So I mean, that's part 2 of the problem, right?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director Dhaliwal. Tracy.
Thank you, Lorraine, and thank you, Chief Muir, for the report, and obviously excellent work that's being done. I echo the comments of my director colleagues. I just had a couple of questions. One is, obviously, your staff often see some very traumatic events, and I just wondered if you could give kind of maybe a high level of what we're doing to support staff again in these circumstances. And then the second part of that question, have we seen any increase in leaves as a result of mental health and observing some of these events in our staff over the last year or so.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Absolutely, the wellness of our officers, the events that they're exposed to, and that's just not our police officers, it's our civilian professionals. So we've really prioritized wellness of our team and members. We've recently introduced a new position, a sergeant of member wellness development and support. We're also building out, we've almost doubled, we have a CISM team, which is a critical incident support team. We've doubled the membership of that team. We've developed a reintegration program, so when people are exposed to these events. And then what you'll see is we will have diffusings of events when they occur with all the involved individuals. And then the next step, we have peer-to-peer support as well. So we have individual reach out to individuals who may be impacted by an event. And even beyond, we still continue to do other reach outs just to ensure wellness. So part as we move into 2024 and our priorities, it's really continuing to build out these opportunities and areas. As for the second part of your question, we and as well as other people within public safety and law enforcement are seeing increases in those type of claims related to WCB and otherwise. And again, we continue to track closely and most importantly, ensure that we get the proper supports for people as they need them.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Suzanne. I was curious about part of Director Dollywall's comments about the group that went out to pass on the 8777777 number, that number that has a lot of sevens in it, about whether we're going to do that again, because it seemed quite successful. And I was just wondering, as a follow-up to Harj's question about that. So maybe you can answer that one first, then I just have a comment for you.
Yeah, certainly. I think increased awareness is something that we're always looking to do. So we'll be collaborating with TransLink around that, and if and when that next best timing is for an increased and additional awareness campaign.
Yeah, great.
And other strategies.
Right. And the other thing I just wanted to comment on was your KPI at the end of your report on page 5. I found that very useful with the green, red, and yellow. Just kind of give us a high-level overview about how things are tracking inside your police group. So I appreciated that, and I just want to acknowledge, and hopefully you'll continue to do that for us.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so seeing no further questions, I think we'll thank you very much, Chief Muir, for your report, and we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. So thank you. Okay, so the next section of our agenda is 4 committee reports from the chairs of each of the committees. So we're going to start with the Finance and Audit Committee Chair report. So I'm going to ask Director Seckel to provide that report as the chair of the committee.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to report on the Audit and Finance Committee meeting that was held on March 19th. The committee had a busy agenda and received reports and updates on the following topics. First of all, we received the detailed 2023 year-end financial and enterprise performance report, which is a report on the performance of the entire enterprise and provides an overview of TransLink's results as of December 31st, 2023, compared to the established budget and results for last year. I think you heard about that report earlier today. We also received TransLink's 2023 statutory annual report, which is required by our legislation, and recommended it for approval by the board later in this meeting. We have considered and recommended the 2023 audited financial statements, which are supported by an unqualified audit opinion by our auditors, and these are also presented for approval by the board later in the meeting today. We reviewed and recommended the TransLink tariff amendments for fare increases to be effective July 1st, 2024, and those are also coming to the board for approval later in this meeting. We received updates on major capital projects, including the Broadway Subway project and the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain project. We received information on TransLink's 5 bridges and the operations, maintenance, and rehabilitation works on those bridges. That report is part of our consent agenda for this meeting. We were given a quarterly safety update, highlighting various safety initiatives undertaken in the last quarter and also reporting on customer safety trends. And finally, we received various enterprise risk management reports reporting on some of the risks that the board monitors on a regular basis. So that's a synopsis of our meeting on the 19th, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alan. Any questions for Alan? I know many of you were there for the meeting, and you all have the report, and we are going to be dealing with many of the items, as Alan said, later on in the agenda, not too distant future here. So if there's no questions for Alan, then we're going to move on to the Planning, Communities, and Communication Committee Chair report. So Director Reimer.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. So we also had a busy agenda this month, or this quarter, I guess, but the meeting took place this month. We did our annual review of terms of reference and our duties and responsibilities. We had quarter Q1 updates on Indigenous relations, customer experience, communications and marketing, government relations, and public affairs. 2 of the items we discussed are on this agenda, so I won't speak to them at length. One was the accountability report, and the other was the annual report from accessibility advisory committees. The 2 that I will give a bit more time to, one is the 2023 Transportation Trends and 3-year Outlook report. So that came to committee, and it is the next steps after. Many of you may fondly or not fondly remember the ridership recovery reports we've had over the last 3 years. And this report will be what replaces that, looking at sort of long-term trends in a number of areas. So the committee discussed that report, and we expect it back in June or later this year based on the feedback that the committee gave on a number of key factors that staff are tracking. We also had our annual summary of customer information. So just to review that, customer information is a department within CNBC that receives feedback from the public through various channels, including phone calls, web forums, and social media. Customer information triages all the feedback received for the enterprise, whether it's coming from bus service, SkyTrain, Canada Line, or the contracted services like HandyDart that we've discussed. So the report allows us to see an overview for the full year of trends in complaints from customers. So as discussed with the police report, an increase in ridership means an increase in a number of things, including complaints, although the complaints did not rise as fast as the ridership, so I guess that's good. A number of key trends were observed, and specific improvements in 2023 included implementing new operating hours to optimize service, introducing a new translation service in over 300 languages. You may be surprised to hear that the #1 language accessing that complaint service is Spanish. And then, of course, the next ones might be more expected: Mandarin, Cantonese, Punjabi, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. So we also looked at new detailed feedback subtypes for reporting, which allows for a much finer grain analysis of the information, and creating new dashboards and lowering in the coming year the complaint response time from 15 to 7 days for what are called P3 complaints. So these are the ones that don't involve, these are sort of bus stop related or things that aren't urgent for resolution. And finally, modernizing the agent training program. And that is what we discussed, Chairperson.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrea. Any questions for Andrea in regards to her report? Again, many of you were there. So we're going to move on now to Director Ross, and he's going to give the Human Resources and Governance Committee Chair report. Andy?
Thank you, Chair. Our committee met on March 18th also. First meeting of the year, we covered a number of our scheduled topics. Our first report on equity, diversity, and inclusion contains a lot of in-house work that's been done as we develop and progress through the fields of finding our workplace representing the people that we live with in our communities as well, and lots of good work that I've reported on recently. We had a lot of discussions on our regular People and Culture Quarterly Report, and I'm going to hit on some of the highlights of that in just a moment. We looked at feedback from our new directors when we bring them on board for orientation to make sure that we're bringing them and onboarding them with enough information to participate. We reviewed the screening panel, which make recommendations to the Mayor's Council for appointments for our boards, as it is that time of the year when we review it. And then a number of reports that come to our committee on a regular basis at this time of year were reviewed. Our subsidiary board appointments, our code of conduct, our terms of reference for our committee, corporate policies, our conduct and code of conduct reports, and our privacy and information access. So a lot of those reports are come to us on this cycle, but I do want to touch on a couple of things that sort of predominate our committee's work. Attraction and retention of staff remains one of our largest issues, and this has been the case since the outbreak of the pandemic, and it's prevalent across all sectors of the economy. And I'm glad to report TransLink and its subsidiaries have achieved some levels of success by reevaluating and modifying all of the aspects of recruitment, training, and succession planning. Our overall headcount across our enterprise continues to grow, with BCRTC SkyTrain growing, averaging 5% year over year, as our staffing levels ramp up to prepare and to operate the Broadway and the Surrey Langley SkyTrain extensions. And the use of hiring fairs for operators, maintenance and trade positions, and niche positions within the organization have yielded some positive results. This expansion, as well as our regular resignations and retirements, resulted in a significant workload for our HR departments. In 2023, I should say, there were 585 new transit operators hired, in addition to another 1,102 new hires across all aspects of our organization. And I just want to touch on a couple of examples that show look in the new directions as we face the challenge of a changing workforce in the future. At BCRTC, they launched a high school work pilot project that was touched on with students from the Burn Creek High School. It had very positive feedback from both employees and the school, and we'll be looking to extend this opportunity to other schools in the region. And as mentioned in the CNBC report, the Trade Discovery Women Program did provide the two participants with that work shadow. As we see the changing evolution of the maintenance of our heavy equipment, we're hoping for new opportunities to open up for not just women, but other people that are non-traditional in the trades departments as well. I'm also pleased to report that we have received recognition from outside of our organization and have resulted in Canada's Top 100 Employers organization recognizing TransLink for 2 awards, BC's Top Employer and BC's Canada's Greenest Employer. And as also in January, Forbes magazine selected TransLink as one of Canada's best employers for employees with at least 500 employees. So some recognition for the hard work that's been going on internally in our organization. And finally, as Kevin and Randy and Mike's report noted, Transit Operator and Worker Appreciation Day was on Monday, March the 18th, the day our committee met. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our thanks and appreciation to the over 8,500 employees who every day keep Metro Vancouver moving. And that, Chair, is my report.
Thank you very much, Andy. Any questions for Andy in regards to his report? All right, seeing none, we're going to ask Director Dhaliwal to provide us with a report on the IT committee.
Thank you, Chair.
Harj.
Yeah, so the IT committee met on March 20th, and the IT committee received reports from management on a number of technology programs, program topics, and received updates on significant IT projects and investments. One area discussed was the ERP program, which is coming to a close soon, with the projects nearing completion and the implementation winding up at this present time. The program was successfully planned and rolled out, and it was quite a large program that included 4 very large transformational projects, which were the BCRTC Enterprise Asset Management, Enterprise Financial Supply Chain Management, CMBC Enterprise Asset Management, and Technology and Enablement. Easy to say, right? So there was some very large transformational pieces in there, and those are all winding up right now. The committee also received reports on enterprise risk relating to IT, and we had quite a discussion on those areas, and that, Madam Chair, is my report.
Great, thank you very much, Harj. Any questions for Harj in regards to his report? I know these committees have a lot of work to do, and we usually meet like a week before, so and they're quite extensive. So thank you for all the work that each of the committee chairs and the committee members do. So we'll move on to item number 11 on our agenda. We're now moving into all the financial reporting. So Chris Dacre is going to have a lot to do and speak about here, Chris. So the first item is our year-end financial and performance report. And we have this in our package. It's quite an extensive report. So I'll turn the floor over to Chris and she can give us her presentation. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. I also have Olga Kuznetsova, our Vice President of Financial Services, with me today for this report and a couple of the following reports. But before I go through the slides, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Kevin, Sani, Randy, Chief Muir, and the board for the kind words said today. I feel very honored to work for an organization like TransLink. The passion and dedication of the employees is what really makes this company a great place to work. And I will truly miss both the work and the people. So thank you again. Now, in the year-end financial report, it outlines our key accomplishments in 2023, along with our financial results and our performance trends for the past 5 years. Next slide. As you know, Metro Vancouver is witnessing unprecedented rates of growth. In fact, our region welcomed, which Kevin also mentioned, 90,000 newcomers in 2023, which was double what we planned for. This growth, of course, has huge impacts on our ridership. We saw a 20% increase in ridership over 2022 and an increase of 21% in transit revenues. We ended the year with a cost recovery ratio of 46%, which is 10% higher than last year, but is still lower than the high of 59% in 2019 prior to COVID. We anticipate high inflation and labor costs will continue to put pressure on our cost recovery ratio. Next slide. In 2023, 900,000 unique people took transit each week. That represents 1/3 of our population, really illustrating just how essential our transit system is in moving people around the region. And while Metro Vancouver ranks 22nd in population across Canada and the US, SkyTrain has emerged as the 4th busiest rapid rail system ahead of major cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. And bus ridership is the 3rd highest of all transit operators. Next slide. A big focus during the year was preparing for expansion and enhancing the customer experience across the system. As you heard from Sani, expansion at BCRTC is unprecedented and requires significant preparation and organizational transformation to lay a strong foundation to deliver new service when the system and infrastructure are completed. At the end of last year, our first of the Mark V train fleet arrived at SkyTrain's operations and maintenance facility for testing. Once in service, these new cars will be able to carry 25% more customers. Also in 2023, many enhancements were made to improve the customer experience. TransLink was the first transit system in Canada to install Braille signage at all 8,500 bus stops to improve transit information available to customers who are blind or partially sighted. We engaged with Indigenous nations on potential transportation and access improvements. We offered another year of the popular bike bus service for cycling customers traveling between Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal and Bridgeport Station. Metro Vancouver Transit Police introduced Community Safety Officer Program to provide increased visibility and more opportunities to engage with customers and improved response coverage. The first 20 officers have been hired and deployed on the system. So great customer experience means people will want to continue using our system, supporting the increased ridership. Next slide. As I mentioned off the top, we saw a 20% increase in ridership with a subsequent increase in transit revenues, which led to higher than forecasted operating revenues. We also experienced higher investment income due to the higher interest rates on our investments and cash balances. These revenue sources helped offset lower fuel tax and parking tax revenues, as well as lower than anticipated development cost charges. The lower development cost charges were due to the delays in the capital projects, resulting in less revenue recognized than expected. The development cost charges collected are restricted to eligible capital projects, so it's important to note that the timing of these revenues are tied to the cash flow of those projects. Next slide. As I already mentioned, we faced significant obstacles amidst record-breaking inflation in 2023. Despite this, we upheld our commitment to financial prudence, actively seeking ways to reduce our expenses to offset these challenges. Some examples of this are deferring some project initiatives, thus reducing professional fees, savings from vacancies and lower benefit costs, reducing software licensing and other IT service costs, and managing our contingencies. Subsequently, our overall operating expenses remained in line with budget. Before amortization and interest, our expenditures for continuing operations were $1 million more than the budget. Next slide. Capital project cash flows in 2023 were $632 million. In addition to this, we contributed $64 million to municipal infrastructure programs. The majority of capital spending was for important infrastructure projects like Capstan Station, Marpole Transit Center, the Edmonds Operations and Maintenance Center capacity upgrade, and investments in transit priority on priority rapid bus corridors. Major construction projects included SkyTrain's new Operations and Maintenance Center for the vehicle storage and maintenance, as well as the new Operations Control Center. We also invested in fleet replacement and expansion, all of which helps us prepare for the system growth. All capital project spending was approved in the 2022 investment plan. Cash flow for 2023 was actually significantly less than expected, mainly due to resource shortages affecting both supplies of material and human resources, permitting delays, and amendments due to complexities experienced in the design phase of key projects. Next slide. So to summarize, the region's unprecedented population growth is contributing to the increase in our ridership, but at the same time, this increase in demand is putting pressure on our service, resulting in overcrowding on many of our routes. We know that additional service expansion is critically needed in our region. But in addition to inflationary pressures, declining revenue sources have resulted in a structural deficit, which has already been mentioned this morning. That's why we've been focusing on cost saving and efficiencies while we work with senior governments, this board, and the Mayor's Council to find long-term solutions. To push this work forward, in 2023, we launched an independent efficiencies review to ensure we are doing everything we can at TransLink to be as efficient as possible in delivering on our commitments. I will turn it back to you, Chair, for any questions on this report.
Chris, thank you very much for that report. And I know this was a big part of the committee meeting when the committee met. Are there any questions for Chris in regards to the report? I really appreciated the slides that you presented. I am curious, Chris, while I'm waiting to see if anybody else has any questions, when we're going to hear back from the analysis that we're doing with KPMG.
Are you talking the efficiency review?
Yeah, with the efficiency review.
It's not KPMG.
Just, sorry.
It's EY.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will hear back by the end of June. So they're very, very busy right now, as you can imagine, working throughout the enterprise, all of the operating companies as well. And yeah, we should hear back, have a report by the end of June.
Sorry, I was misspoken because KPMG is our annual auditors, so apologize for that. I see that Director Dhaliwal has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Chris, thank you for the great report. I'm just noticing in the on the last page in the highlights, the overall ridership is increased by 20%, but we only increased the service hours by 1.4%. Can you maybe just shed some light on what the discrepancy between those two are?
That speaks directly to the overcrowding that we're having. So we have certain service hours and then the ridership with the population growth and just more people taking transit. So it's crowded, and that goes directly to that.
And we can anticipate more crowding unless we find ways to increase those service hours then, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Any further questions? There is this is for information. This is our year-end report, and there is no decision to be made at this moment related to this. Okay, so we're going to move to item number 12 on the agenda, which is the statutory annual report. Welcome, Mayor West, to the meeting. I know you had other commitments, so appreciate you joining us.
Thank
All
you.
right, so we're moving on to item number 12.
Great. Okay. Next slide. Oh, actually, this is the only slide. Okay. Our statutory annual report is required by our legislation and shows our actual results compared to what was projected in the 2022 investment plan. The actual service levels delivered are aligned with the investment plan. However, they were slightly lower, mainly due to cancellations from detours and certain incidents. Access transit trips were also lower, but that was due to lower demand. This report also includes a summary of customer complaints, customer satisfaction survey process, amendments to the articles of the authority, the summary of date, time, and outcome of TransLink's board meetings, the fare collection bylaw, a summary of tickets issued and collected, and a summary of the development cost charges. So this report, once approved, will be sent to the Mayor's Council. I'll turn it back to you and happy to answer any questions on.
Thank you very much, Chris, for that. I do see a question from Director Reimer. So, Andrea.
Thank you. And Chris, I'd be remiss not to, since I am going to ask a question, just thank you so much for all your many years of service and these reports today. I could put this in the form of a question, but to be really straight up, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Travel Training for Newcomers program in this and the award that they received. I just think it's such a brilliant program and doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. So I wanted to give it a brief moment of attention and thank Chris Chan and the team for everything that they're doing to help make transit more accessible for newcomers.
Thank you.
All right, I see no further questions. This report can be a bit dry, but it's full of really important information. And I know you spend countless hours, you and your team, putting this together, Christine. So I appreciate all the work that goes into this. We do have a resolution here to approve this report so that it can be made public. And that's on page 96 of your report, that we approve the statutory annual report mandated by our Act as presented in Attachment 1 and authorizes the release of this report to the Mayor's Council on Regional Transportation. So can I have somebody make that motion? Thank you very much, Alan and Andrea. Thank you for seconding that. Any further questions or clarifications required? If not, I'll call for the question then. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, so our next item on the agenda is our 2023 audited consolidated financial report, financial statements, and the report will be again presented by Christine. So Christine.
Thank you. KPMG, our external auditors, audited our consolidated financial statements and concluded that they fairly present, in all material respects, the consolidated financial position of the authority as of December 31st, 2023. We are very pleased with this clean audit, and I would like to thank the entire finance team, as this is the first year end with our new financial system, which only added to the complexities of what the team worked on this year. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair, for any questions on this.
Great. Thank you very much. I see that Director Reddy's has a question.
More a comment, just Christine and the team. This is a very, very complex organization with a lot of things going on, a lot of balls being juggled in your department as well this year. And I just want to, congratulate you on again, another very clean audit that shows just how talented the finance team is. So I just wanted to add that comment. And Chris, we're all going to miss you, but we know we've got some great people in finance that will continue to support TransLink for many years to come. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. And I will pass on those comments because the team is really, really great. So thanks.
Yeah, and I think I would echo, I attended that meeting with KPMG and they were singing your team's praises and how impressed they are, because they see lots of organizations and they were just, very complimentary about all the work that you and your team do each and every year, Chris. So yes, kudos to everybody. So thank you. All right, so seeing no further questions, we have a resolution. It's on page 149 of your package, and that approves the audited consolidated financial statements and authorizes the board chair and the Finance and Audit Committee chair to sign these statements. There's more words than what I've read, but that's the essence of what I have. And I see that Tracy's ready with her hand already. So can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you very much, Alan and Tracy. And before I call the question, any further questions or clarifications before I ask you to vote? So all in favor of approving that resolution? Thank you very much. And that passes. All right. The last one that Chris and her team are going to be presenting is the transit tariff amendment. Now, I've been watching the news lately, and this has been on the news. So, Chris, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you. I believe we have a couple slides here as well. Okay, so the next slide. Okay. So in 2024, the recommended average transit fare increase of 2.3% remains consistent with the BC Safe Restart Agreement that was signed in 2020, as well as the 2022 investment plan. The recommended increase remains below the cost of living and inflation and keeping transit fares affordable to Metro Vancouverites. Next slide. This increase will come into effect July 1st, 2024. Concession fares will increase between 5 and 10 cents, and adult fares will increase 5 to 15 cents, depending on how many zones traveled. Adult monthly passes will increase $2.40 to $4.35, and concession monthly passes will increase $1.40. So these are the just a table of some of the samples of the fare increases. And as I said, it is consistent with the 2022 investment plan, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. We have on page 196 of your package the resolutions in regards to this increase in the transit fares. We had some speakers this morning speak about the zone system. We had one speaker that didn't make it, wanting to have a 10-day pass. Do you want to make a comment, Chris, about the limitations that we have on our system that might kind of have people understand why we have the system we have?
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot, but yeah, I think it's interesting because, we have people wanting change and we can't do that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the system has been around for a long time. The fare zone system has been around for a long time. The Compass card, of course, we haven't always had Compass card, but we've really outgrown our current Compass card system. We're not able to add any more zones to it. We're not able to add any more fare products to it. We really are limited with what we have. So we are embarking on what we're calling Compass Card modernization. It's really a new system that is going to move us into, I'll say the future, but it's really what's needed now and consistent with what a lot of transit agencies have today. And it will enable us to be more flexible, be able to offer more selection of passes, maybe discount, ride 10 times, get 2 free. Don't quote me on that. But, you know, the flexibility of what we can do, we really need a new system. So that's what we're dealing with right now is we can't make any of those major changes. But we hear you and we want it as well. So stay tuned. We will be working on that in the future.
Great. Thanks, Christine. All right. So any questions before we have the resolution here? So Andrea?
Yeah, I appreciate staff's comment on it and do appreciate also all of the many pressures on the system and the connection this has back to the restart. My question, and it might not be answerable right now, Chris, but curious about, I mean, I have some familiarity with the subsidy programs that are available, but as they stand right now, not through TransLink, but through the BC government, as it stands right now, they're fairly limited. I mean, I know we've done some advocacy to try and expand those, but if there's a possibility to continue that advocacy so that folks that might be negatively impacted by this but not be able to access the current programs would have more ability to access them.
Yeah, the BC Gov Pass program is the one that is talked about a lot. And we also have our UPass program as well. But I will also mention that we do have other programs where we do give back to charitable organizations of these passes. So there's, I don't know the name of the organizations right now, United Way. We work with United Way on people that return their Compass cards that may have a balance on it. They hand them in, and then those funds are turned into fare products that we can give to charitable organizations for those really in need of transit. So we have lots of that on the go. So it's not just the formal programs that we have with the provincial government, it's also giving back to those organizations too.
Yeah, no, that is a good reminder. Well, I think I mean, I see the necessity of voting for this increase and understand the financial pressures on the system. I think it would be helpful perhaps on the website and other avenues to make it clear what options people have for whom this might be just put on so much burden that they no longer are able to take trips.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Reimer. All right, so as I said on page 196, the resolution reads that the TransLink Board of Directors introduces and reads a first, second, and third time the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Tariff Bylaw Number 154-2024. Attach this report as Attachment 1 effective July 1st of 2024 and reconsiders and finally adopts this tariff bylaw number. So that's the resolution we're going to be asked to move and approve today. So can I have a mover and a seconder for this? Alan and Tracy, and any further questions, comments before we call for the question? Hearing none then, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, so that moves us to the final item on our agenda today, and that's the consent agenda. I asked at the beginning of the meeting if there was any items that needed to be pulled out of the consent agenda and did not see any. So I'm going to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Thank you very much, Andy. And a seconder? Thank you very much, Gordon. And any further questions related to this? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? So that carries. So I would like to thank everyone for their participation, questions, reports for today, and I will call a conclusion to our meeting. And it is now 11:03. All right, so thank you all very much and appreciate everyone